to the cloud. Perfect. All right. So this is Prince Agency's third Thursday community conversation with guest host Don Pick-Benson. I'm going to deliver a talk and interactive event on travel beyond the bucket list. So that's just kind of a title so that the recording maybe has a title at the beginning of it or something in the AI part.
Yes.
And let's see. I see texts from Jeff reminding a few people to join. I've got a girlfriend that I passed along the 4 questions to that should be in the meeting, and she's fairly well traveled and um, should be an interesting person to ask some questions and interact, right?
And I
Uh,
know I have one person who texted me a few minutes ago and said she's joining, and then I'm gonna guess a couple more people will jump into,
uh-huh,
but I don't know that for sure. But I did just send them all reminders, like anyone who's been in my
perfect.
programs. I know some of them are working and cannot come, and some of them can, and
Right.
so um, but yeah, that sounds like we'll have enough people to just ask some
Yep,
questions, interact with a little bit. Um, and
exactly.
also is good for me to refine like this kind of talk. I think I need to tweak a little bit and but I think I want to use it in other places. Like I think it's a good topic.
Yeah,
And
I totally agree.
I think it's kind of I'm figuring out more and more like what I really like talking about and what is a unique thing about what I have to say, and not the same like I'm gonna give you 5 tips on how to get cheap plane tickets. I mean, people like that,
Right.
but that's not
Anybody can do that, right?
this is not really my thing. I'm like, I don't really care that much about that stuff. Um, so it's more about the journey that people go on. And I see that more. I think I'll talk about that today, but I see that more and more actually with expats living overseas around me. The ones
Hmm.
that really are looking at doing more personal development and then sort of like look at it as a journey. I think they're growing and getting a lot more out of the travel than the other ones who are just taking numbers off their list, you know? I can tell
Yep.
the difference. It's almost like as soon as I meet them, I can tell which kind
Yes.
did they gone deeper or are they just kind of at surface level hopping and
Check.
all like
Checklist. I've been there,
yeah,
done it.
checklist and I'm
Make a
running away
Facebook
from
post.
feeling anything. So I'm just going from one country to the next, to the next, to the next. And then they're the ones that always say, I thought this would change my life and it hasn't.
Right.
Um, I don't
It's
know.
it,
I'll try to,
it,
I was
it
like, I need to talk about that without anyone knowing who I'm talking about.
yeah. It's how you prepare for what you're going to experience. If it's you going into something expecting you're just going to check something off a bucket list, and even if you don't say that out loud, it's really what's going on in the back of your head, you're less likely to experience whatever is going to come your way versus I just want to see who am I in this completely different place, right? And what is life bringing my way?
Yeah.
What opportunities, what relationships, what experience is, yeah. And what am I learning from it about the world and about myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you need to, were we going to make me a
Oh, yeah, host. Yeah.
presenter, host?
Good question. Chat. Sure, okay. Let's see here. Show transcript, whiteboard meeting, transfer settings. Hmm. Okay, participants. Okay, I think it's in the
Is this the
on.
one where I have
Oh,
to send a request to share my screen or?
well, once I think I'd make you make host. Okay.
There we go.
Allow to record computer, remove participant, put away. Okay, so I'm just gonna say change host to Dawn. Okay, cool. Dawn is the
Oh,
host
yeah, now
now.
I can see who's in the waiting room.
Right. Oh, shoot. And I cannot Huh. Okay,
Oh,
so let me reclaim that so that I can keep an eye on that. And let's just see if you can. Okay, I reclaimed it. So now see, can you share your screen? Let's just test it real quick.
yeah. And I didn't need to, I don't think I needed to be the host for
Yeah, I don't think so
reading.
either.
I mean, I'll try to watch the chat for questions and we'll figure it out. We
Well,
can.
I can watch the chat for questions as well, right? And that should be a fairly easy one to keep my eye on as long as I'm still the host, right? And I'll just mute and unmute myself. Don would like requesting to allow multiple presenters to share. Allow. Okay.
Multiple presenters, huh?
Well, I guess that means that because you're a guest, other guests would be able to share their screens too if they wanted to, but let's just hope nobody tries to do that. Hijack the meeting.
All right. So I want to share. Um, I think I want to choose Google Chrome. Let's see if that.
Yep, that looks like it.
And then what I am wondering is when I hit this, do you still see it?
I do.
Okay.
It's
That's
perfect.
what I wasn't sure. I always am like, do I choose the whole desktop or the
Right, right.
window? And I don't know why I never can remember.
All
Um,
right, we got 2 minutes till, and do you want to maybe take it off of sharing your screen at the moment so that I can talk and introduce you? There we go,
mhm.
perfect. And then I'll say, go ahead, take it away, Dawn, and she's going to share her screen. And anyway, so um, okay, quick introduction. Obviously, I know your name. Shall I be
Mhm.
sharing your business name? What name am I sharing? Like,
I mean, my business name is Globe Story Travel,
okay,
um, but I don't use it very much because my website is my name and stuff, but you can say it. It's
okay.
just I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, do I need to
Globe Story
like
Travel.
uh
I just texted it
use
to
that
you so I
URL
can look at
more
it and
for
remember. Yeah,
yeah. I think I need to find out if I can buy that URL and then or something
yeah,
like that. That
yeah,
way if someone does go to it, that it gets
yeah,
redirected to my current site.
yeah.
Because I more branded my own name, but now that I'm doing tours more in Kosovo as well, I'm having to use that business name and it would probably be good if I don't know, or
Gotcha.
I don't really want to have another website. So
Right, I gotcha. Okay, so it is the top of the hour. I'm going to let people in, okay?
yep, I'm gonna yeah.
Hmm.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I am Melinda with Prince Agency Insurance. I see some familiar faces. I am letting people into the meeting. We're probably going to give it maybe just another 3 minutes before we get started, just to make sure I've let everybody in that's attempting to join.
All right.
All right. And I am probably, yeah, people are sharing. You can choose to either allow your camera to share your face if you'd like to during the meeting, which is fine. Or go ahead and turn it off. If you're moving around in the background, I just want to make sure we don't distract from what Don's doing during the presentation. And everybody stay on mute until maybe we have some questions or interaction, and we'll have a chat function. If you look at the bottom of your screen, a little chat bubble, hopefully most people are experienced with doing that before. As she's going along and presenting, please feel free to offer some questions that could be helpful because I'm sure not only you have the question, but probably some other people would benefit from it as well. Let's see, we're at two after.
I'm
So,
curious too if people want to put in the chat where you're coming in from
oh, that would be
and,
great.
and like, do you travel often? Is this new to you? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Some basic things like that.
Yeah.
What intrigued you to tune into a travel talk? So with that, again, I am Melinda with Prince Agency Insurance, and welcome to our third Thursday community conversation event that we have, of course, every week of the year except during enrollment season in the fall. So October and through January, we usually do not have these events, but the rest of the year we do. If you are interested, please navigate to our website, which is princeagencyllc.com. And under the About tab are all of the previous Third Thursday events that we have hosted, and many very interesting topics from Medicare 101 planning, retirement planning, investments in retirement, estate planning, and elder care law questions. We've had some very interesting people, and Dawn being one of them. She did a previous event for us last year. And that one was a little bit more about traveling solo and doing it safely and how you might navigate some of those things. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that one. But today's event is going to be more about, we've titled it Travel Beyond the Bucket List. And so I'm going to let Dawn introduce that topic, but I've known Dawn for, I think we're probably going on somewhere in the vicinity of 16 years or so. When I first started my business and did some basic networking, I met her. She is a writer by trade and has become quite the excellent photographer over the years with her travels. And I enjoy following her, and you should too, between Facebook and Instagram and things like that. She runs a different kind of travel business, I'll call it. And it's called Globe Story Travel, and that will come into play here as she describes our event today. That is a different kind of travel talk. So without further ado, Dawn, I will let you take it away and share your screen after you introduce yourself.
Alrighty. Well, as she says, I'm Dawn Pick-Benson. I'm a travel coach and own a travel company. I host retreats that are largely hosted in the Balkans. And I currently live overseas in Kosovo part of the year. And then also I'm from Michigan, which is how Melinda and I met. And I focus a lot on working with women who are in the midst of some transitions in their lives and are interested in creating meaningful travel and also connecting with one another in deeper and meaningful ways. So I focus a lot on self-discovery and and we're going to talk about that today, how that is so important in travel. So I am going to share my screen and start out by telling you um, a story. First, let's hit present. Okay, can everyone see? All right, and I'm gonna make sure I can see faces well. I like to see people's faces when I'm talking. Okay, so it was several years ago that I woke up. Let me make sure this is gonna go. Yeah, there we go. I woke up in Paris. And Paris is this city that I had always dreamed of going to. I think since I was probably like 9 years old, I always used to have this vision of me sitting at a cafe drinking espresso, even though at the time, honestly, I had no idea what espresso was. I just thought it sounded cool. But I knew I wanted to drink espresso and read a book at a cafe in Paris. And this was my dream. And so here I am. I wake up in Paris. I remember that day, like I barely could get out of bed. I felt really down and just completely alone. A word for it to me would be almost unanchored. I just felt like really kind of lost at sea. I don't know if you guys have ever felt that way, but sometimes you wake up and you're just like, what is going on? And so just days before that, why am I in Paris? Just days before that, I had left to the start of a 3-month journey overseas. Um, so even though I had figured out at the time, I figured out how to be able to work remotely. So that's kind of how I got the 3 months. And I knew I could stay in one country for 3 months at a time without having a visa. So that's kind of the backstory of how that happened. But I was going to go overseas for 3 months. So I was in the middle of this amazing journey, but yet this question kept lingering inside of me. I kept thinking, what if my entire life no longer fits me? And I don't know if any of you have ever asked this question, but to me, it was terrifying. I was like, okay, I'm 40 something years old at the time. What if this life I have built isn't the life that I actually want? And in effect too, like, what if it's even harming me? Like, what if I need to make changes? So I remember sitting in that cafe, just like I had imagined, where I thought it was going to be this amazing experience. And I remember thinking, here I am in Paris. I built this life that I thought I wanted. I was married. I had just started a business, which allowed me to be able to travel like I was doing. I had some flexibility, but yet somehow I was just so deeply unsettled. So that day, I kind of pushed myself out of bed, made myself walk around Paris a little bit. I ended up in this area of Paris um, that was by the Sacre-Cœur, and which is a cathedral in Paris. And I remember being really just feeling like I was drawn into this cathedral, almost like I just needed to go in. So it was like suddenly I'm no longer sightseeing. I'm like honest, I'm searching. I just feel like there's a reason I need to go in. So I go in and I sit down on this wooden bench and I think about how I had always grown up believing that wisdom came from outside of me. Because at this time, I'm searching for answers, right? And so I'm thinking about how I find answers. And I'm like, well, in the past, it's been from authority or religion or experts or even science. So and I had this uh, realization. It was interesting. I had this realization just in that moment that, wow, I trust everyone else before I trust myself. So here I am, sitting there, and I remember sitting there and I'm like begging for a sign, like, please give me an answer, a sign, something. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Um, and I still kind of laugh at this, but what happened is this image pops inside of my head, and I see this giant gumball machine that's like hanging over everyone's head in the cathedral, which is like the oddest thing to experience, right? So I'm chuckling a little bit, but it was almost like I immediately knew what it meant. And to me, it meant that I thought I could just put in a question or put up a prayer and out would pop an answer. Um, and that's how I had lived life. And I also had this secondary thought that said, wow, you're always looking outside yourself for answers. It was almost like I heard this voice, like internal voice of you're always looking outside yourself for answers. And that, sometimes when those things happen, they just hit you right in your chest. And I knew immediately that that was true. And I had tears that started to run down my cheeks in the church, because I thought, oh my gosh, this feels true. And I remember I had a journal with me and I wrote, what if the answers, or what if the voice I'm looking for is actually inside of me? Um, so so then after this experience happened, I mean, really, when I look back at it, this trip really, it changed me profoundly. It actually started me on the course to what I do now. I wouldn't have known it back then. Um, but I started realizing, and there were different ways that I realized it, different things that came to my mind, that I realized I had outsourced my own knowing. So as the trip went on, I started to just practice listening to myself, which honestly, I don't know how y'all. I think some people are really good at this and were taught young to actually listen to themselves. I was mostly taught that you can't trust yourself. So this was a hard practice for me. So I started practicing it while I was overseas about how to, because at first I thought, I don't even know how to listen to I'm so used to taking everyone else's advice. Like, how do I figure out my own like advice? So, I started to experience a lot of things that helped me to see that travel isn't just a way to escape our life, or even I hear a lot of people say to reset, like, I want to go a lot of, especially in the US, we want to go overseas and get away for a while and kind of, we use the word reset or get away or whatever. And I think sometimes we think that it could be a great adventure or even a distraction. And I also realized during this time that, travel isn't um, there to necessarily help us find easy answers. I think because like, don't get me wrong, I think travel is beautiful and that it does provide us answers at times, but I think that what we run into, and I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, is that if we don't do the work, the internal work, sometimes ahead of the trip and during the trip, and aware of looking at that and self-reflecting and thinking about things like this is a good example of, am I listening? Do I know how to listen to myself? So start reflecting about things that I needed to learn. Because if we don't do that while we're traveling and even leading up to it, what we often find is we come back, we're the same person and we have exactly the same tools to face exactly the same problem. So nothing really got reset other than I left for a while and I came back and now I'm like trying to do the same thing over and over again without having really learned. So what I really want to talk a little bit more about today is the fact that travel doesn't necessarily always give us answers, but it does create the conditions in which we can find them, in which we often can finally hear our own voice, maybe for some of us for the first time. So that's the part that I think makes travel magical. It's not that it's just this quick thing, but I think it is making the time and the space to allow for that transformation. So what I think about it as movement is medicine. So fast forward ahead several years now to where I am now. And this is part of the work that I do and I teach, what I talk about as a travel coach, and in my retreats and things like that. I've worked with so many women who are navigating divorce and grief and empty nesting and caregiver burnout, career endings, reinvention, all those fun thing, not really fun. But I also know that this isn't just my story. I think that this is the story of many of us. So I'm going to take a guess with you guys, that if you're not in the middle of one of these transitions or one of these life changes, that you probably know someone who is. So I think we all at least know someone who is, if it's not us, right? And that might be what was interesting to you to come to this event. I don't know. But what I've noticed is that when when our identity changes or sometimes feels like it collapses, movement often helps us reassemble it. It gives us, I think sometimes that's why a lot of times when things, transitions happen, people are interested in travel and doing I hear a lot about the eat, pray, love concept. Love it or hate that phrase. I think that shows us that when we are experiencing transition, something inside of us sometimes wants to move. It knows that we cannot stay exactly where we are, that it's not okay anymore to stay in status quo, to stay stuck, right? Stuck is probably a good word. A lot of us sometimes feel stuck. And we come to this point where we're like, I'm done being stuck. I need to find some answers. Maybe travel is it, right? But I also think that travel, and this is the thing we'll focus most on today, is that it isn't really, I think sometimes when we think I'm stuck, I need to go somewhere, we first thing we do, like, what is the first thing you all do? Right? You're like, okay, maybe I've seen a movie about Italy or Greece. I love this movie. Maybe I need to go to Greece, right? We just kind of pick the destination and then don't think about much else. We buy a ticket and here we go to a new destination. But I think it's not, I actually think the destination is one of the, I don't want to say it's the last thing you should think of, but it is not the first thing you should think of. And it is really, to me, more about what this reveals inside of you, what travel can potentially reveal inside of you, right? So what I like to think about, and I know that a lot of research plays this out, that there's a lot of research that shows that when our lives change dramatically, we need distance from our normal environment to reevaluate who we are. changing our environment interrupts mental loops. So, in other words, like sometimes we don't need more advice from people. We don't need people really even telling us where to go or what to do, but we need the distance to think differently. And travel does exactly that. It interrupts our patterns and our roles and our expectations. Like suddenly no one is calling you mom, sister, wife, caregiver, employee. I know for me, Paris didn't magically reveal my own answers, but it did give me the space to slow down, to interrupt my routines. Like I wasn't at home having to figure out when my grass needed to be mowed next, and dealing with all the questions and all the things that happen, or we just get in these ruts where we're doing the same thing all the time. But this interrupted my patterns, gave me a whole different way of living and to think about, and new things to figure out and to try. It removed my usual roles, so I wasn't trying to be in those same roles as I was when I was at home. I got like I was in a new place, nobody knew me. I could play with that a little bit. It also creates solitude, because I think, and this is where I think it's really important to think about when we're thinking about travel, to not, how do I want to say this? The more I like, currently I'm overseas. I'm actually in Macedonia right now. And I meet a lot of expats and a lot of nomads, people who have moved overseas or might be moving around. And what's interesting to me is that started to notice a difference between some of them. There are ones who left and came overseas and just picked a destination and are going from place to place, and that and not necessarily thinking real deeply about everything, just kind of traveling and checking things off a box. And I've been involved in some different conversations where people have said, I set out on this trip and I thought I was going to travel and experience this major transformation, and I just haven't. And so I've become curious over the last couple of years and asked lots of questions to people who will say this. And what I have noticed is that usually if they're saying that, they haven't done a lot of, like, they didn't really do a lot of work leading up to the trip and figuring out what they actually need and want out of the trip. They just sort of bought a ticket and said, I'm out of here. I just need to get away. And there wasn't a lot of thought. And maybe there's no, self-discovery and listening to yourself has to become a practice for you. And if you don't already have that practice, or you're not intentional about it, you're not going to just suddenly develop this practice just because you're in a new country. Like, okay, now I'm in Macedonia, I'm suddenly great at listening to myself. That's not going to happen unless you're intentional about it. So that's why, I'm so passionate about this. Don't just pick the place and expect transformation, because you actually have to do some inner work to get to that transformation, to like know what you need and want out of a trip. And I think that we often, when we are overseas, yes, we can meet ourselves differently. We can be removed from the stories that have been telling us who we are, but we have to be aware of that. And we have to start to become aware. Like, that's a lot of the work I do with women, is working with them, helping them think about what are the stories that we tell ourselves, and breaking those down and pushing against the ones that are not true. And if we don't start to learn and to see and to recognize those stories, then they just recreate themselves in another country. So, but if we're intentional about it and we start to notice what those are, then the magic is understanding those stories, starting to like break them down a little bit, and then you're away and you have a different perspective, and you also can work with it a little bit more, because you're not dealing with this box that you feel like you're put in when you're home. I hope does that make sense to you all? Like those of you I can see, maybe not, I can't see everyone on the screen, so but I can see six of
I'll
you.
unmute myself for the moment, Dawn. And yes, I have been through many of these stages in my lifetime, and you're absolutely right. Getting out of your normal space, it allows you the opportunity to see your way out of the box that you may be in when you're at home every day and you can't see outside of it. Right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I'll give you just one quick example. I remember one person who came on one of my retreats, who came in, and as she was talking, it was clear that kind of the story, the people around her, the story that they were telling her about herself was that she was kind of flighty and not super organized and maybe makes bad decisions. And then as we started talking to her, and asking her things about herself, we all realized like this woman is brilliant. She had an amazing career. She started her own business, had done really well. She was very intelligent. But she had been believing this story about the people around her, what they were telling her. And so what was really effective during this retreat, it's just a retreat is just a week-long thing, but this kind of thing is where you start to realize, wow, I have this story. I didn't even know I had it. And so we start reflecting. I like to use the words like the women in my groups, I think we reflect the beauty and the bravery in one another. So the women around were like, wow, you're so intelligent. You're such an interesting person. Like, obviously you're a badass, right? If I can say that. So we all started to see that. And then I could see over the few days of we were there, she started to see herself a little bit differently. Each day was able to take on that a little bit more and a little bit more, and realize, wow, maybe these women maybe they're right, right? And so this is what I'm talking about, where I think it's really important to be thinking about these things, and it's not just about I signed up to go to a retreat and overseas and I'm just going to have this beautiful travel experience. It's also doing some of this work, and what I love about what I do is it's often in community. So the women also, we sharpen one another, we point things out, we see the things, but we're doing it in like also in a safe container and love. Like, we're all like, wow, you're like, so with this woman, it was so beautiful to see her kind of blossom in that week of realizing, wow, I might have more to myself than I realized. So that's what I think is really fun about the work that I do. And I think, to this kind of reiterates the fact that I think sometimes we think especially when you're in the middle of a transition or you feel stuck, we feel like this pressure to act or to like rebuild. I got to hurry up and like figure stuff out and what's next. And I need to know what my next steps are. And I mean, I know this because I felt like that when I first came over. I was like, I need to have a business plan by the time I leave. I need to have decided what to do about my relationship. I had all these things I thought I had to figure out. And what I realized that I needed to do was just slow down and be intentional and notice. I needed, because I really believe that, yes, travel creates distance, and distance, like I said, creates a perspective or ability to get a little clearer, to learn about self-trust, just the act of traveling sometimes by yourself or even with a small group. Like, there are always things you have to figure out on your own, right? You start to learn how to trust yourself better. And I think that perspective really does change us. And that's really the heart behind what heard me say, the work that I do, working with women. I call it, just to kind of give you, I'm not going to focus a lot on this, but a broad brush of how I see it. I keep talking about this internal work. And the reason that I don't just say, sign up for a retreat, let's go, and it doesn't involve any internal work, because I really think that learning about ourselves a little bit first and during the trip is really what makes it so it like 10x's your experience. So I a lot of the programs I do are called Brave. So I have Brave Journey, I have Brave Circle, and I do Brave Journey retreats. So, but Brave is an acronym. So B is befriend yourself. So we spend some time getting to know ourselves. And I think that's important for all of you, whether you're doing anything with me or not, like getting to know who you are. There's lots of different ways to do that. Sometimes, I use assessments that look at our strengths and things like that, but there's lots of ways to get to know more about who you are. And then the R is releasing old stories. So I just talked to you a little bit about how we have these stories in our minds, and we need to start releasing them. So I think it's important to start to learn maybe what some of those patterns are. And then while you're traveling, you start to realize how you might release them. You've identified some of them, and now I can let go of them. I can start to learn how to create new patterns. And as you do that, the A is awakening to possibility. So, as soon as these old stories start, just like this woman I was talking about, all of a sudden, she's looking at pot like, wow, I might have more skills than I realized, right? We awaken to what's possible for ourselves. V is validate your fear, because I also know that as soon as you step into, like it always happens, as soon as you sign up for a trip, sometimes as soon as you step into new things, fear comes in, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I thinking? And sometimes it's the people around us questioning, like, should you be doing this, or should you be thinking that way? So, and this is why I love doing these in small group programs, because we also get to notice that all of us experience these fears, and we normalize it. Because I used to think, this particular trip I was talking about to Paris, because I was so scared at times, I thought, am I doing the wrong thing? Should I not be here? All those things. But when I look at it now and realize that fear was so normal, and it would have been strange for me not to be afraid. I was thinking about completely upending parts of my life. It would be strange if I wasn't a little bit terrified, right? So, and then E is enlist your people, and you'll like, most of the work I do is in small groups with women, because I really believe that the community is really important for us to encourage one another. Like I said, I use the terms reflecting the beauty and the bravery in one another, so that we get to be like, if you've ever been in a circle of women that just really encourage one another, it's just really beautiful. I've been in both situations where it hasn't been so good and where it has been. And I work really hard, and I think the people who work with me, I hope you would say that too, that I want to create a safe space where we can share and we can be vulnerable. And so that's a lot of the work I do. And I want to do an exercise with y'all if you're game. Because I think you might be asking the question now, like, okay, this stuff makes sense to me. I'm, it's really interesting, but okay, what are the practicality? Like, I don't know how to listen to myself, or I'm not really sure, like, what is the first step for me to even be thinking about what I want and need out of a trip? If I'm not supposed to think about the destination first, what should I be doing? So I'm going to do an exercise with you all, if you're game. And then, this is really just kind of one first step you could take. This is designed to get you to this place of listening, to this place of looking inside and finding out what you want and need, not what your friend says you need, or where they think you should go, or even like a farm or travel and leisure magazine tells you the top 5 places to go. Those might not be at all the places you should be going. So what I am a huge proponent of is you need to go inside and listen and figure out what is that place I need to go. Because this practice is designed to just sort of help you start listening to yourself. It's a tool. It's not the only tool. It's one that I use often. I actually didn't like this tool at first, because I wasn't used to it. I was not used to like listening to myself and thinking big, right? So, and I'm going to ask you to stretch a little bit. For some of you, this might be easy, and some of you, it might not. But before you, like I said, I want you to forget destinations entirely. I think I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute so that I can see everyone and make sure. Okay. Is that okay? That I did that. All right. So I want you, instead to think about where should I go, I want you to think about, how do I feel? How do I want to feel? How do I want to, like, I'm thinking about maybe traveling. How do I want to feel on that trip? So we're not thinking about destinations necessarily, although it'll be a part of this. But I want to invite all of you to either close your eyes or just space out, however you want to do this. But I want you to think about a travel journey in the future for you. And I want you to think about um, what would be an amazing, incredible travel experience for me. For my next travel experience, if I'm going to imagine what's the most amazing trip I possibly could take. And I do want to caveat this with, I know sometimes when I ask people to do this, they have like five things that pop into their head or two that they're not sure of. So I'm just going to invite you to pick, like, there's no right answer here, right? So just pick one of them. It doesn't, you not, one's not better than the other. And if you do have three of them, note it and do this with all three of them after, like, we'll do one now together, but then you could do the other two later and just, because there are things you'll notice. But just pick one because it doesn't matter if one's competing, just like go with your practice, going with your gut, whatever it comes to one, whichever one feels the most energy around it, just pick that. So I want you to think about that amazing journey that's ahead of you and think about, where am I? And it doesn't have to be necessarily like I'm in Greece. It could be I am surrounded by water and the waves are lapping around me, or I am in a villa at the top of a mountain, or I'm in a jungle. It could be anything, but I want you to imagine, where are you in? What do you see around you? And then next, I want you to think about, what do I smell? Right? Is it salty air? Am I smelling fresh bread? Someone cooking? I don't know, fruity wine. It could be anything. What do I smell? I just take a big whiff of whatever it is that you smell. Just let it yourself take it in. And then think about, what do I hear? Am I hearing like laughter? Is it just dead quiet? Are there waves or rustling leaves? Dishes could be clanking. What do I hear? And just let yourself just notice what's around you and what you're hearing and smelling and seeing. And you could even think about what you feel like, if you happen to be walking, there could be sand under your toes, you'd be in the water, could be, I don't know, fresh bread in your hands, could be anything. So now you have a picture of what's around you, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, the sounds around you. If you're feeling anything, if there's anyone next to you or around you. And think about, who am I in this picture? Who am I sitting here? Who am I here in this moment? And notice if there's anything that feels different about you in this scene. Now, just for a minute, I want to invite you to open your eyes. And if anyone is willing to tell me a little bit about what you saw, what happened, like what was that picture in your mind? What did you notice? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I think you can request to unmute yourself, right?
I'll share.
Yeah.
I felt and I guess heard, smelled all the things, but um I heard laughter and for some reason like specifically like grandma's laughter and I don't know necessarily like sitting in a like restaurant or a cafe and just like lots of honestly just like women sitting around laughing, drinking, eating, and like everyone is just happy and themselves and yeah, felt very like peaceful and like yeah.
That's beautiful. Isn't that cool? Just that picture of women sitting around and grandma there and
Makes you a
like,
little emotional almost.
wow, that's that's really cool. Okay, I might ask you a question in a minute. But it's just one other person want to share.
I'll go ahead and jump in with one. So my feeling or environment looks more like um, on sort of like the foothill of a mountainside and beautiful blue sea lapping against the shoreline, below. But I'm hearing the sounds of like a very local sort of farm-like community with um, farm animals, hearing them go about their daily lives, and people, like you mentioned, the clanging of dishes and things like that, that it's just very grounding feeling of daily life in a simple place where you can breathe the fresh air and see the beautiful
Yikes.
that somebody else is on the other side of the wall from me attending at the same time we were
Ah,
okay. Let me unmute myself or I will mute myself again and somebody else can take a turn because we would love to hear more.
yeah, I think what's so interesting to me is that everyone's is always completely different. There's never two that are the same. Isn't that interesting to you all? Did anyone have something that's totally different than the other two? Or I guess it could be the same too, but I'm just curious. No, I know. How are they unmuting them? Keep unmuting. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Um, with one extra little thing for you all to do. Um, so I want you to take just another minute or two and settle back into that scene and bring it back into your mind. So for, I don't know if I say Tamar or Tamar, whichever way
Amar, but it's okay.
Tamar. Cool. Like settle back into your scene with grandma and all the women being themselves and laughing, like settle back into whatever your scene was. Um, and we gave you a minute to do that. Just go back in there. And now I want you, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, if you don't, that's fine, but just note it in your mind. I want you to notice how you feel in this scene and maybe pick 2 to 3 words for it, right? So, what I mean by this is you might feel peaceful, you might feel energized, you might feel excited. Um, there's a lot of words, vibrant, creative, but I'll let you think about how do I feel in this scene and pick your top 2 or 3 words.
Tamar, did you hear Don's question? I'm not sure, you froze for half a second. So
Oh, I heard it. I'm sorry. I thought we were all, I didn't know it was directly at me. I thought everyone was sitting in there.
I
Oh,
I
no, no,
think,
no. I wasn't asking her
oh,
necessarily.
you
I
were.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
my
I'll
mistake.
like pick two or three words. I probably will put you on the spot again, but okay. Those of you who I can see, can you just go ahead and nod your head when you've got your three words? Or give me a thumbs up. Thanks, Michael. Okay. Is anyone willing to share with me their three words? It can be someone new, it can be someone who already spoke. I don't
I will.
care. Okay.
I finally got unmuted properly, I think.
Yep, I hear you.
Uh, I was gonna try and tell you before that I saw myself in one of the African countries where you can take safari tours.
Mhm.
And so I would be very nervous, I believe, on that. A safari tour out with wild animals. And I would be excited and I would feel brave.
Mhm. I love that. See, these are great where like I'm gonna jump in with you real quick on this because I love this. Brave was actually one of my first words I did on a trip. I actually do this exercise almost any trip I go on now, thinking about how do I want to feel on this trip. So Judy, if you knew, like we can take aside, you could go to Africa on a safari or not. I mean, yes, you could do that. You could choose not to. But we know that in your picture you're looking at like feeling excited, feeling brave, a little bit nervous, probably because you're doing something that requires you to be brave, right? Um, so if we were to take Judy's idea, I want to feel excited and brave. Can you all think of places she might go? Yes, she could go on a safari, but are there other things that might come to mind too? I know you, I know y'all are smart, so help me out here.
Well, right at the moment, I will just pop in there and say, I hate to say this, but I have a friend who was just in Paris.
Mhm.
And I almost feel like it's brave to go to Paris right now. And I know that's sounds facetious, but actually he had some bad experiences. And he is used to traveling, and he's a pretty nice person. And he became ill, unfortunately, and they weren't really nice to him.
Mm,
And he felt that it was because he was an American. And right at the moment, you know, I think things are temporary in that regard. But right at the moment, I think that traveling in Europe actually is a brave thing.
yeah. I mean, anytime we're stepping out into a new place, it's brave, right? Um,
Well,
and you're right.
especially if you're not sure how you're going to be received.
Right, right. I mean, there's a lot, there's some truth to that, right? So thinking about those things and, deciding if you're going to step into them or not is a good question. Um, but I do like, let's also use Tamar's example because yours is totally different. Um, so are you willing to share like how you felt in that scenario?
Um, I would say that I felt like safe, but I guess I like don't really know. Unburdened maybe is the right word. Just like
Mhm.
not worried about who you might see, if you're laughing too loud, if you maybe had like one too many glasses of wine with your friends and you're all being a little yee. Like just general feelings of like freedom and unburdenedness, I guess.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind too is uninhibited, like
Yeah,
you can
that's
be
a
who
good,
you are, right?
perfect word.
Um,
Yeah.
and so let me know if this all makes sense to you guys, but can you see like, let's say Tamar comes up with this and she's like, I just kind of want to feel unburdened. I want to feel myself, uninhibited maybe. I also heard you say the word peaceful earlier when you were talking about it. Um, these are some of the words she's thinking about. So why I encourage women to do this exercise first before you choose a place is because it has information in it usually. It kind of tips its hat to what you might need. Like I say your soul is like wanting, and if you're interested in travel, you're often wanting and needing something. And if in this picture you're creating something that feels peaceful and you're able to be yourself and uninhibited, maybe that's something that you're looking for right now. So then now we can look at where you might go, and that might be really different than your friend who wants to go, or even, for people who want to feel brave, that's a very different trip than I want to feel peaceful, right? Because you might add bravery. You might choose to go to a country where you're not sure everyone's going to like you. If you know I really want to feel peaceful, then you're probably going to pick something that you know you're going to be well received or that's not going to be stressful for you. Can you see how those are different? So some of the work I do when I'm working with women, and you could do it on your own too, like do this exercise, figure out, like, notice, okay, I'm really longing to feel these things. And if you're longing to feel peaceful and stuff like that, don't sign up to go on a skydiving trip with your friends or to go jump in ice baths or something that might, well, I don't know, maybe that might be peaceful for some people, but for me, that doesn't sound peaceful. Right. So don't be talked into doing stuff that's not what you need. And I think that's also a good practice of us starting to listen to ourselves, because then as you go on that trip, it also works for me in that if I know I'm wanting to feel brave, or uninhibited on a trip or something, I also make decisions based off of that. This excursion is before me, this opportunity is before me. So I'm gonna choose this because it falls in line with those feelings I want to have. So yeah, so maybe I'm not gonna do skydiving because I want this trip is all about peace for me. And I don't need to be stressed, or I'm not gonna I even think about it too in terms of layovers and flights. If I really am looking for a peaceful, chill time, I'm not going to pick the flight that has 4 layovers to different cities in Europe. Now, I will tell you that when brave was my word, I purposely picked a trip. That's how I ended up in France before I went to my next destination, because I wanted to have to I actually had to transfer airports and everything. I wanted to know that I was capable to do things by myself, and I purposely did that so that I had to feel like I gave myself opportunities to feel brave. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was. Um, I was, I just think that's a really like good point, and I've never really, or at least for me I'm in my mid-20s, and at this stage in my life, a lot of my friends are like, I've been invited to go on like hiking trips and things like that, that as much as hiking is obviously beautiful and there's a beautiful view at the end of it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like for me personally, hiking tends to frustrate me because my body isn't able to do the things that I want it to be able to do, and like my body starts hurting or something like that, and then I feel like defeated and I've like skirted out kind of away from, like, I've had friends that have gone on hiking trips and stuff, and they'll sometimes be like, I'm so sad, like I don't know why you won't want to come or something like that, and I've like kind of felt like I was maybe being a little bit like a scaredy cat or something, that like in the back of my head I was like, well, maybe it's just like I don't want to do something hard and push myself. But
Mhm.
and that probably does play a part in it, yes, but also, like from what you're saying, that's not something I'm like looking to feel. I don't really want to be reminded of my body's failings, or I want to go and do something that's going to like bring energy back into me rather than feeling like I'm exerting all of it and then drained at the
Exactly. That's a telltale sign too, is what brings you energy and what takes it out. I think it's almost like you grow up in America, it's almost like you're taught that, I don't know, somehow being exhausted and energy being depleted is like a badge of honor and a good thing. And it's taken me
I
years to
don't get
understand
it.
that like things should bring us energy. They should excite us and we should allow for that. I should don't have to like pick everything just because it's hard and depletes our energy. That's really actually a good insight for you. I have the same feeling about hiking too. Sometimes I feel like I should be doing it, but I also know it doesn't give me the same aliveness that it gives other people. And I'm learning to have to be okay with that, even though I really kind of want to be, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put my screen back on. If anyone else has anything they want to jump in and share, that's fine. Otherwise I'm gonna move on with a couple more slides because I'm realizing what time it is and I want to be able to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions if you want. And I'm gonna share my screen again. We just talked about that. Um, And this is really, we're coming to the end of the slides and the talk, but that's kind of, I just wanted to give you a taste of what it's like to think, to turn it, travel a little bit on its head and to think about what do I want and need and know that there might be reasons for that and to start practicing how that's just one tool, but it is a way to start practicing listening to yourself and to using that as a tool to make travel more transformational. And I think, often the bravest step is leaving for a while to figure out who you are, to give yourself space for that, give yourself space to listen to what you want and need. I know that I used to think travel would just bring me answers just by going overseas, like somehow information would plop into my head. But really, like when we're talking about my experience in Paris, what I discovered there is that answers weren't just waiting for me in another country, but they were waiting inside of me. And I just needed enough distance and some tools to be able to finally hear what those answers were. So I don't think for me that and I think for a lot of women, the distance isn't, or the destination isn't really what changed us. It's not, even on Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert is not because she went to Italy and ate a whole bunch of pasta that changed her because she met a hot dude over in wherever country that was. Yes, that changes. I'm sure that changes things, but it wasn't. But if you even look at her story, she was doing a lot of inner work. She went to India and was learning yoga and there was a lot of work that was going into what she was doing. Those are the things that change us. And that's why I love travel, why I believe in it. It's because it's not to become really something new, but I think it's to return to find out who we are in this stage of our life and to kind of like renew that connection to ourselves and what we want and need right now. I think I have a couple more slides. Yeah, there's one more. And also I have a free guide for you all if you're interested, if this is something that in this conversation that resonated with you. This is not a guide that's about, because as I think you probably can tell by hearing me, it's not a guide that's about here's 5 ways to plan your trip and to put everything all in one suitcase. It is about how to discern whether travel is calling you during a season of change and what that might look like. So in this guide are some reflection prompts and signs you might be being called to travel. It's really kind of a fun, there's a lot of journal prompts in this. So there's a QR code in this picture that you could take a picture of. My website's on here also, and I'm sure you also could reach out to Melinda or me and just ask for it and I'll send it to you. Depends on, everyone is tech savvy in different ways. So if QR code is gibberish to you, just reach out to us. We can make sure you get it. And I do you have one more thing that I just wanted to let you know that happens? You've heard me talk about working with women. If you're like, man, I would love to have a community like this of women who are like living intentionally through travel and reflection and meaningful conversation. I have this community of women that we get together once a month. We have these monthly conversations where we get to know one another. We talk, it's a deeper connection where we really follow one another's lives, and we talk about ideas, and it's a sense of belonging, inspiration. We talk about travel, but we also talk about real life, like what's going on in our lives. So it's kind of this gentle way of having an accountability and connection with people. And I also bring in guest experts to not just talk about travel, but also talk about what's happened to them internally because of travel. Or I've been curating women who I think have really interesting lives and who are really working on discovering themselves at this stage of life. And so those are the kind of women I invite to come and chat with this group. You can hit this QR code as well. It will give you more information about it. The monthly membership is $47. And then if you do the coaching, you get 90 minutes coaching once a month individually with me, and that's $197. So just if that's something of interest, you can always ask me. And you also, if you know anyone who might bring value to this, just pass it along to them, and I will stop sharing. And if anyone has any questions, do we have time for questions, Melinda? I feel like
Sure, absolutely. And obviously if people need to leave, please feel free, of course, to leave the meeting if you've got something else going on right at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock. But otherwise, I'd like to stay just for maybe 10 or 15, just to ask a few questions if anybody has them.
I'll start. Um, I'm wondering like how, especially with the way that in America our culture is set up and just our day-to-day lives are set up, like how do you keep some of like whether they're lessons or just insights, whatever you like are learning on these trips about yourself, like how do you keep that with you when you get home and have to go back into like your day-to-day life, especially if it's something that where you're like realizing, wow, I need to like make changes in my life and need to actually start doing something differently, but that can kind of feel really hard when you get back, at least in my experience in the States, it feels very go, go, go and on to the next immediately.
yeah. Yeah, I feel you there. I mean, and I honestly, I really feel like coming back is almost sometimes where the real work begins. And it's why often when women return, it's how I ended up doing the ongoing membership program, because women would come back from the trips and say, okay, I still want to stay in connection with each other because I don't want to lose what happened here. And so there's a couple of things I could say, because I know for me that's been a struggle. Like my first time I came to Europe, I learned this slower way to live, and people enjoy their coffee and they're more chill. And then I came back to the US and it was like craziness, and it was like go, 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 go. And I thought, oh my gosh, how can I even keep this? I felt so relaxed with this other environment, and how can I even at all keep this in the same way? And so for me, I had to think about, okay, oh yeah, so clearly I can't just force America to be different or come home and just be mad because it's different, right? So I was like, okay, what did I enjoy about that slower pace and how it made me feel inside? And are there ways that I can bring that forward into when I return? So for me, it looked like I started to put more boundaries around my work, because I thought, okay, I can't just completely change everything, but maybe I don't have to respond to everyone at 10 p.m. at night. Maybe I actually could decide to work like 9 to 6 or 8 to 6, and people will wait until the next day to get my responses. It was small things like that though, but it started to create space for me. And those are things I could get away with. I don't know. Let me give you maybe a bigger picture answer too, though, because that's a super specific example. And I just know that I wasn't going to suddenly teach everyone to not work all the time. But I thought, you know what? I don't have to work like a crazy rat. I could choose some things. At that time I was working for myself. So that's a good and bad thing. I could easily work till 10 p.m. if I wanted to, but I also could choose not to. I know there's a different dance if you have a boss, but I also, have had experiences with bosses where I just, sometimes we don't know the boundaries we can make until we try them. Sometimes you can have a conversation with someone you work with and say, look, I'm happy to answer at 8 a.m. when I get to work. I don't have to, just know that I will jump in and answer my question. But I think that probably the most helpful things are to start to develop a community around you of like-minded women that you can just discuss these things with. Because I could give you a million different ideas, but I also think that conversation with other women, or it doesn't have to be women, right? But it could be people that are like-minded, and where we encourage one another to maybe live life differently, to like, hey, I felt this way while I was overseas, and I'm trying to figure out how to bring that back here. What do what do you all think? So masterminding it a little bit. Also, if there are practices you used while you were overseas that really helped you, like that is really where I started to do meditation, was overseas. And I just came back to the US and just was stubborn about maintaining it and practicing it because I knew it brought some inner peace to me. So I just kept going with it. Or I would create space to go for a walk because I knew that walking while I was in Europe really seemed to help me think. So when I came home, I tried to keep walking. I have a friend who she just likes to make she liked the coffee overseas and it reminds her to slow down. So she bought a little, a thing to make espresso, and she makes her little macchiato, and she sits down and she remembers how she felt while she was over there. And it's just kind of a check-in of like reminding herself. Does this make sense to you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
some
I
thought.
just read something yesterday about walking and brain activity, and how like new ideas and new concepts or things that you had roadblocks about, somehow you're statistically, if you're walking and moving while you're doing those things, that your brain figures those things out. And for those of you who don't know, Tamar, who's been participating, happens to be my daughter, of course, and um, her negativity on hiking comes from me because that's what I love. And so for me, it's hiking and going and doing those things. And it was kind of like a light bulb when I read that thing of, that's exactly what happens when I get out of my chair from behind my desk and I actually walk and start moving my body. All of these things that I have roadblocks about start to reveal themselves and find a path forward on. And it's very calming and relaxing because you get anxious when you don't know the way forward. At least I do, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is a lot of research about walking, and you might be walking up a hill or a mountain, and Tamara and I are going to walk flat through
I'll walk to the
or
bar
something.
at
We're going to walk to the coffee
plus.
shop.
Right.
But yes, there is good research on that. It's a really good point.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions for Dawn?
Hi, Don. My name is Jennifer. I have thoroughly
Okay.
enjoyed this. You have given me way too much to think about on a day when I have too much to think about, and I'm looking forward to noodling on this a little bit and bugging Melinda in the future. I have to jump to another meeting, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I appreciate your expertise and your experience.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Mhm.
All right. And really, thank you all for coming. I know that it's noon for most of you. Some of you it's not, but most of you, I think it's around noon-ish or could be earlier. and you're taking some time out of your day, and I appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. And we've recorded this Third Thursday event, and it usually takes us about a month to get some edits done, a title on it, some things like that. And then we post it to our website under the About tab, under the Educational Third Thursday events. So please go look for that. And if you found this valuable, I'm sure that you probably thought of a friend or a family member who is in a transition in life, that this, just thinking about some of these concepts, could really be life-giving to someone. And so please tell them to go take a look at this video and replay of it, and reach out with any kind of questions that you might have, because we would be happy to connect you to Dawn if you didn't happen to screen capture that QR code or something like that. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you
guys
so much
very
for the
much.
opportunity. It's nice to see you all, some new faces and some old faces, not old, but
Yeah.
familiar faces. None of you are old.
Thank you, Don. Again, it was wonderful. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful summer.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.